players versus superstar talent is there is synergy within the front office and ownership. And it's amazing how much that makes a difference from top down, because if you have the front office's support, you have that collaboration with the head coaching staff, the players feel that. They feel that everyone's on the same page, and it goes beyond the fact that they have star talent. They're able to develop some of their rotation players a lot more, and there's more continuity, where the Lakers are in this really interesting situation where they have LeBron James. They're used to that institutional excellence with their championship past, but there's always been this feeling of, are they doing that of the detriment of building a culture and developing some of those young players? And hence, this is where they are. There's not really a clear direction on where they're headed.
Yeah, I mean, Jeannie's made some bad hires. Magic was a bad hire.
Yeah, and the thing was, when she made that hire, she was looking at what was happening before with Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak. She didn't like the fact that they were missing on free agents. She didn't like the fact that there were all these coaching changes. And look, Magic Johnson deserves credit for getting LeBron James, but when you're looking at some of the things in the previous front office, it's almost repeating some of the same mistakes. They just got rid of Luke Walton, and you can debate whether that's a good move or a bad move, but it shows a lack of continuity. And then as far as how they're developing some of their young players, that was one of the things that Jeannie found as a criticism of the previous front office. It's the same thing here.
So KD last night, I thought, put on a real clinic. So Steve Kerr had come out after the last loss where Durant just didn't shoot the ball much with Patrick Beverley guarding him, and here's what Steve Kerr said after last night's game.
He said it yesterday, he's Kevin Durant. And so he showed everybody who Kevin Durant is.
He was remarkable last night.
Yeah, without a doubt. And here's the thing that is interesting, and that kind of got a little bit under Kevin's skin, where Steve Kerr was saying, hey, I want Kevin to shoot 20 shots, 30 shots. And he kind of clapped back a little bit and saying, I'm not just going to go out in a game and shoot 20 or 30 shots for the sake of it. But Steve Kerr's larger point was, I want you to be aggressive, impose your will on the game. There is a fine line. You want to take what the defense gives you, but if you're someone of Kevin Durant's status, with having such a scoring prowess, you don't have to always wait to see what the defense gives you. You got to impose your will. So it's not so much how many shots he's taking, how many times he's passing. It's really just about establishing his presence with his aggressiveness there.
So Kerr has to poke Kevin occasionally. Their relationship's different.
Yeah, it's very weird this season, because whether it's that example or the whole idea that Steve wants his team to play with joy or with having ball movement, Kevin seems to go out of his way to contradict a lot of those beliefs. And you can look at that and see, as an example, that they're not on the same page yet. When I've talked to him, when others have talked to him about how he and Steve Kerr have been over these past few years, he's painted it as something that's been very collaborative. They go out to lunch a lot, he and Bob Myers, the Warriors GM. So as much as there might be some subtle differences underneath the surface and obvious differences below the surface, they have a ways of being able to figure those things out. And there you go. You have game 3 after game 2 where he had, I think, more turnovers than shot attempts.
I mean, there is an understanding. Marcus Thompson here yesterday. Yeah. I'll stand by this. I think going to New York's the wrong move. LeBron showed you going for business over basketball doesn't work. And I think, especially when you're in your prime, I could make an argument for LeBron doing it because he'd moved out of his prime. I still think Kevin's got a couple of prime years left. Certainly looked like it last night. Marcus Thompson yesterday said, listen, I don't think Kevin Durant's got this thing all sewn up. I think he could be convinced either way. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I don't think he has it sewn up either. I mean, there might be times during the season where he's looked elsewhere and thought in his mind he's going to go somewhere. There's been times, I'm sure, that he's thought the opposite. I remember earlier in the season, he talked about the Warriors in such glowing terms for the obvious reasons, with the winning, the 2 finals MVPs, the collaboration. But then there's times throughout the season where he's been disconnected. He's been a little bit moody. And so I think when you're talking to people around the Warriors, they're bracing for the worst, that, hey, maybe he winds up leaving, but they're also preparing for that best case scenario because they know how fleeting it is. And at the end of the day, they've been winning. He could win his 3rd straight championship, 3rd finals MVP. They can offer him the most money. Kevin has been expanding his business portfolio portfolio, particularly in the Silicon Valley. They're moving to San Francisco next season. So wouldn't you think Kevin wants to tap into that? Those are all possibilities, but I think also the Warriors are being realistic that there is this chance that he might leave, but they think it's going to be all up in the air until the season ends.
You are covering arguably the greatest basketball dynasty ever. People have covered the Patriots for 15 years or Alabama football. These dynasties don't happen. This is one of the great teams. Offensively, it's the best team I've ever seen. I still think the Bulls with MJ were a physical, a better defensive team. But if I had to say, give me in a sentence or two what it is like to cover an all-time great team.
Well, I covered them. This is my second season, so I covered them kind of in the middle of it when they were used to winning championships. I think that euphoria that you saw at the beginning of this run, it started to fade away a little bit because they're going through that grind of 82. They're expected to win. So it kind of reminded me when I first started covering the Lakers when they were defending a championship where they had all this top-heavy talent. They're trying to battle that grind. They're trying to see how long this train can keep moving. And to your point, this could end fairly soon with Durant leaving. There's, decisions they'll have to make on Draymond and free agency. But when I've talked to Joe Lacob and Bob Myers and Steve Kerr, the past year or so, their worst case scenarios, if nothing else, can they at least be the San Antonio Spurs from the past generation where maybe they don't have this strong influx of talent every single year, but they're always in that conversation because they have someone like Steph Curry running everything and they can establish continuity with developing younger players. And that's why I think the Warriors have had that whole strength and numbers philosophy. Yes, it's easy to say, hey, they have 4 all-stars, but they're very well aware that that could be fleeting. So how do you have plan B to pave themselves for, the next wave?
One of the things I really like about sports in America to now, it used to be Braun won, big tough guys. Golden State, smart. Patriots, smart. If you look at the best tennis players, Federer is not the most physically gifted. He's one of the really smart. I actually played tennis with a former Federer coach a couple days ago, just talking about his IQ, how expansive it is. Smart Red Sox, Dodgers, analytic guys, smarts winning. There's a lot of brain power in Golden State, and generally smart people know they're smart. My only question about the Warriors going forward is the NBA gasses up at stars. Sometimes when you got 9 smart guys in a room, they wear each other out.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you also look at what teams are doing the rest of the NBA where they've mimicked what the Warriors are doing. They were seen as this team that's spearheading and accelerating the use of the three-point shot. And now when you look at the numbers, there's a lot of other teams, most notably the Houston Rockets, that are utilizing the three a lot more.
Yes.
And what I think that leaves the Warriors encouraged, though, is that when you're looking at Steph Curry and Kevin Durant in particular, there's a real sense around the organization and around the league that their games will age well. Steph Curry is more than just a jump shooter, but there's no way around it. His game is primarily on outside shooting.
Ball handling and shooting.
Yeah, so his body's not going to wear down as much. And then Kevin Durant, when you talk to people around the NBA, and I remember talking to Kobe Bryant about this last year, he feels like there is no weakness in Kevin Durant's game, where he has the perfect blend of having the post-up game. He's utilized the three a lot more. He's a great passer, great facilitator. And it doesn't require him to use that much of a physical presence. He's listed at 6'9", but let's be real, Colin. He looks like he's 7 feet. So he can use that length. He has such great fundamentals. So there's a feeling that at age 30 right now, he could still be the same player 3, 4, 5 years from now because he has that base, as opposed to LeBron, who's all about kind of using his brute force.
I could make the argument that Kevin Durant is the most perfectly built offensive player in the history of the sport. If I said to you, okay, what do you want? Size. He's 6'11". That's way bigger than Jordan or Kobe. Okay, but 6'11", he's also a very good ball handler. Okay, mid-range, excellent. Around the basket, excellent. Three-point, excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, Kobe's right on this.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking, about the only knock on Durant is he's not physically, he's not Zion. He's not going to roll over people. But when you're talking length, touch, size, athleticism, he's about as gifted as I've ever seen.
Yeah, and there's a very interesting trend going on these past few years with Kevin, where the NBA says you shouldn't be taking mid-range shots, but he is so good with that.
Yeah. It works for him.
And it works for him, and they leave him open at times. So he's thinking, well, why am I going to step back and take a contested three where I can just make these mid-range jumpers because they're like layups to him? At the same time, though, unlike someone like maybe Carmelo Anthony, for example, Kevin's been able to adapt his game and add more of his threes. He doesn't take as many as Steph and Clay do, obviously, but when he is open, he'll use that three ball. And if not, hey, he has an ultimate first world luxury where he can dish it off to Steph and Clay.
Mark Medina, it's great seeing you again.
Likewise. It's always a pleasure. And it feels like it was yesterday, 2 weeks ago?
It's like home for you. This is like a home game for you.
Yes.
Mark, great seeing you, buddy. John Goulet with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Colin, Michael Jordan has weighed in on Tiger Woods' comeback from injuries and personal issues to win the Masters, and he calls it the greatest he's ever seen. Quote, I took 2 years off to play baseball, but nothing like that. I'm pretty sure he questioned himself, whether he could get it back, and he had to put a lot of work in, but he took it head on. He had to change his game. He had to change his perspective